How long can you sit in the same position before you need to move? For me, the answer is about 20 seconds. Unless I'm deeply, deeply engaged in something, I'm either going to change positions or start to fidget. Even while watching something absolutely fascinating on TV, I'm going to go from sitting with my legs folded underneath me to sitting with my legs stretched out on the coffee table to lying on my right side to lying on my left side. And that's all during an hour-long program. If I'm tired, I end up sitting on the edge of the sofa and, yes, fidgeting. Also, if you ever see me waiting to board a plane at an airport, well, you'll recognize me because I'll be the one swaying from side to side. In other words, I find it very difficult to stay completely still, and I'm a long way from being a preschooler and among the most active segment of our population. Yes, children fidgeting or moving can be distracting, but too often it's seen as misbehaving or disobeying the rules. Many a child has been moved down on those awful behavior charts for fidgeting, and some, unable to comply with their teacher's wishes, are made to feel like failures at the ripe old age of 3, 4, or 5. No child should ever feel like a failure, nor should a child get coded as having attention issues or be labeled as having ADHD simply because she can't sit still in school. In other words, because she is a child. Recently, while preparing a staff development training, I came across this illustration. It's funny, yes, but we have to ask ourselves why the one kitten who's doing what comes naturally to kittens is labeled as having ADD. It's the other kittens, the ones lined up like soldiers, who aren't behaving naturally. Of course, it's typically during circle or story time that teachers require crisscross-applesauce because they want the children to pay attention. But wiggling and moving doesn't necessarily mean they're not. In fact, being required to sit crisscross applesauce, sitting cross-legged with the back straight and hands in the lap, may mean they pay even less attention because this position is particularly challenging and can require a great deal of concentration. Dr. Dustin Sarver, an ADHD researcher, has said when we tell children, sit down, don't move, stop tapping, stop bouncing, the kids are spending all their mental energy concentrating on that rule. Pediatric occupational therapist Angela Hanscom agrees and is among those experts who contend that children simply don't engage in enough movement anymore, and that's why they're fidgeting more than ever. Lack of movement, she says, has resulted in children having underdeveloped balance systems and strength. She writes, children are going to class with bodies that are less prepared to learn than ever before. With sensory systems not quite working right, they are asked to sit and pay attention. Children naturally start fidgeting in order to get the movement their body so desperately needs and is not getting enough of to turn their brain on. What happens when the children start fidgeting? We ask them to sit still and pay attention. Therefore, their brain goes back to sleep. I propose that we examine why such rules exist in the first place. Rules that run contrary to what we know about children and now about fidgeting. If we understand that children are much more likely to be engaged when they're comfortable, why insist that they assume a position that perhaps isn't comfortable at all, often for many long minutes at a time? So, what are the alternatives? Well, another wise pediatric occupational therapist, Christy Isbell, once said in an interview for BAM Radio Network, who's to say we have to sit down to learn? Why can't we stand to learn? Why can't we lay on the floor on our tummies to learn? Why can't we sit in the rocking chair to learn? There are lots of other simple movement strategies. Just changing the position can make a big difference. Here are some recommendations from teachers to help with the wiggles. Partially inflated beach balls placed on seats, bouncy balls, or beanbag chairs, allowing children to wiggle as needed. Comfortable rugs for sprawling. Chewing gum. Although gum chewing in school is controversial, one teacher told me this was the only solution she could find for a child who was constantly mouthing things. She received permission from the child's parents, and the problem was solved. Coloring books. Just because a child is coloring doesn't mean she isn't listening. In fact, this may be her best bet for paying attention. Stress balls, push balls, and putty for squeezing. Fidget spinners and other fidget toys used only in the manner and by the ages for which they were intended. You could also simply allow children to stand or move as needed. When I'm doing a telephone interview, I walk from room to room because I absolutely think better when on my feet than on my seat. Another benefit to offering the children options is that they can choose the one that best meets their needs. Because they're being given that responsibility and choice, they will take the decision seriously and there will be fewer behavioral issues. This is how self-regulation is acquired, not by being ordered to sit still. Often preschool teachers argue that they must get children used to sitting because the children are going to have to sit in kindergarten and beyond. Unfortunately, it's true that until policymakers begin paying attention to the research and opt for an education system that aligns with how kids learn, children will have to become accustomed to sitting in school. But it's also true that kids will eventually have to learn how to drive. That doesn't mean we should put them behind the wheel while they're still preschoolers. Thank you for watching. These ideas are excerpted from my book, Acting Out: Avoid Behavior Challenges with Active Learning Games and Activities, to be published by Red Leaf in the fall of 2019. To learn more about my work and to buy a PDF with this script and these slides plus bonus material, visit raypica.com.